for Nerdy for 30, podcast where we talk about nerdy-ish movies for 30-ish minutes. My name is Kevin Bauer, a.k.a. The Critic's Choice. With me, as always, returning from a long absence from the pod, the people's champ, Tim Keck.
If you feel it, chase it, baby. We're back. Back at it. Back in the habit,
Good to
baby.
have you back.
Back in the habit of podcasting.
Yeah, a habit that both of us are happy to have picked up over the years. Today, we are supporting that habit with none other than Superman, formerly Superman Legacy, now just called Superman. One word, it's cleaner. Tim, what did you think of this one?
I don't think I've enjoyed a solo Superman movie as much as this one. And I don't.
All right.
I don't think that's an insane thing to say either. Like we don't have a large breadth to deal with. I feel like the only comparison maybe is the first, like, Christopher Reeve Superman. And that's classic. That's old school. That seems like a different thing entirely. But like Man of Steel, whatever. Like, I don't know. I don't care about the Henry Cavill stuff. Henry Cavill, very cool Superman. He looks awesome. He looks unbeatable. But they took a new angle with it by making this Superman feel really beatable and really human in a way that he just hasn't for the last decade. So yeah. I'm in on this. I think the cast around him was great. I love James Gunn. I think he just can do no wrong, I guess. And Kevin, what are you thinking about it?
I'm right there with you. I think in making him a little more vulnerable, they draw the audience in and give us a little bit more intrigue. It's really smart that is also partially framed as the fact that he's younger and less experienced. So maybe he can get to this point of infallibility, invulnerability, all that in stuff later on. But for right now, like, he's a young and fallible Superman, and that's kind of cool to see. It does make the optimism feel a lot more earned when it's coming from someone who can fail versus like Superman always feels so stiff in all these different things. I started going back and watching the old Justice League animated series, and he just kind of feels like a robot because of how perfect he is all the time in that. So yeah, I also dug it. I had huge apprehensions about James Gunn too. As you know, I haven't always been on board with his sense of humor in the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff, and was so happy to see that in this one, all of that humor was pretty much just centered around like Green Lantern and Hawkgirl and Mr. Terrific. And they let Superman just be more of the straight man in this. That was like nice to see that he didn't have to be as wacky as everybody else.
Yeah, the quippiness didn't undercut the reality of what was happening, which I think he's actually, I mean, I kind of think he's pretty good at that and walking the line, but there is especially a trend with Marvel movies where there's just like isn't this wacky? You know, like that kind of thing. Yeah. And I didn't feel like we got any of that in this movie. I think this Superman was so much more compelling. I don't think I've really thought about Superman in this way before. And I'll think specifically about when he's fighting that big monster and the Justice Gang shows up. Mm-hmm. And there's a part of me that's like, Superman should be able to murder this thing instantly. Like, that's the Superman I know, right? Henry Cavill is flying through his head, murdering him and just like tossing him into the ocean or something, right? Mm-hmm. This Superman cares about the creature, doesn't want to hurt it, wants to try and get it away from people as quickly as possible so it can be helped. He wants to help the creature. He also wants to minimize property damage, and he also wants to save. He wants to make sure nobody gets hurt. He doesn't want squirrels or animals getting hurt. He's kind of supervising the entire situation and taking the time to kind of process what the best way to do this is. Mm-hmm. And that I found very compelling. And that immediately makes him so much more, gives him so many more obstacles to overcome in a basic one-on-one fight. Right. Instead of him just fighting this big monster, he has to keep everybody safe. He has to protect the thing. He has to keep the monster safe. He's just moving all of these elements around, and he's not so OP that he can just pick up the monster and fly away with it. Right. There's stakes in that. There's real stakes in that. He has real goals in each of these scenarios, and it makes him so much more complex and complicated than normal Superman. Like, normal Superman just kind of shows up, kicks ass, and leaves, right? Like, maybe he'll pick up a building if it falls over on some people. But this guy is thinking about all the aspects of this constantly. And it just seems overwhelming, but it also seems like that's the level of thinking you have to get to when you have the kind of powers he has.
Absolutely.
Right? He
It feels
can
like
do
a
all that
worthy
stuff.
challenge for him. Yeah.
Yes, it feels like a real challenge.
Based on a couple of the times, like the physics that would be involved with a couple of times he caught that specific big monster, I think maybe he could just pick it up and fly away with it if he wanted to solve the problem more recklessly. It seems like this is a version of him that isn't willing to do something that thoughtless, though. I thought it was awesome, too. I mean, this is obviously, you know, it's an alternate universe, which is also smart because it allows people to be a little bit more naive and a little bit more like, I don't know, trusting of other people than we would have in our own universe. But even though the general public does seem to just really take Superman at face value at first and really love him, it's interesting that they use the peripheral characters to highlight that not everybody is like that. So when Mr. Terrific sidles up next to him in that same fight and is kind of like, I think he says like, what's the game plan? And that's when Superman's like, well, we want to minimize the damage, but also make sure we don't hurt the creature at all. And Terrific's just like, come on, man, like drop the act. Like, what are you talking about? You don't need to pretend to be a Boy Scout around me, but that's really who this guy is. It made me want them to, I don't think James Gunn is necessarily writing and or directing the second Superman. What I took from it is that he really wanted to get this first one off the ground, no pun intended, but may be open to somebody else taking the rest of the franchise. I would love to see what the Ted Lasso team does with this version of Superman, because I do kind of feel like it's a very similar sensibility with people that have this, like, I know it's being called Hope Core now online, but people that have this kind of like real true optimism, like what if we put all of our effort into helping personality?
Yes. And I think that does fit for Superman. It's a good take on Superman. I'm curious how it will play out with the rest of the DCEU, right? Like, he can't do all these movies. James Gunn can't make all the movies. No. So eventually someone else is going to have to take a swing at it. And will they be able to step up and deliver the same kind of quality and even have the same qualities that James Gunn brings to it, right? Like, one of the things I was thinking about was kind of the suddenness of just being dropped into this. This felt very much like you're being dropped into a Superman comic book. There's this existing reality that's been happening. He's been dating. He's had his origin. He's built all this stuff. He has all these things. These are the people in the world. He's been interacting with them. You're just being plopped in. You know, it's like John Wick returning to being an assassin.
Yeah.
Right. There's this whole world that exists and has been existing that we are now just getting to see. And Marvel the past few times has been been very dependent on like the post-credit scenes.
Yeah.
And we've gotten so many disappointing post-credit scenes where we get Star Fox, we get Hercules, we get whatever, we get Blade, we get all these teases of things that could happen. And I think I much prefer the way James Gunn does it, which is he introduces the Justice Gang. We could see them again or we could not. I could get a movie with the Justice Gang, but also if we don't get the Justice Gang and something else, I'm cool with it, right? Yeah. Supergirl, I think they're making a Supergirl movie, right? But that's a much better introduction to Supergirl than just seeing the movie for the first time.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Like, even Frank Grillo is in this movie and he's going to be the bad guy in Punisher. Or at least he's going to be a character in the John Cena one. Peacemaker. Yeah. He's going to be in Peacemaker. And it's like, that's the kind of crossover stuff. Maxwell Lord. Sean Gunn just makes a Maxwell Lord appearance. Metamorpho is just in this randomly. Cat Grant is just in the background. I feel like she's like a very minor Superman, like Daily Bugle character or Daily Planet character. And it just seems like you could get any of these threads and pull them out and put them into something else, have them appear in another movie, have all these crossovers without the pressure of needing to see them again. Right. Yeah. If hypothetically we never saw Supergirl again, it would be fine. It's okay. Yeah. So I like that more than an end credit scene that introduces a character that we may never ever see again. Right. Just make it a cameo in the movie. And then we can just gloss over it. It can just be a background piece. You know, it can be flushing out the universe instead of the driving force of something that may or may not happen.
I've been thinking about this a lot. Like the differences between the way that James Gunn did this and the way that Marvel did it. And there's so many shocking similarities between this and Fantastic Four, which we won't talk about because we're talking about that next week, where the overlap here is that they both feel like they are maybe the second movie in a franchise already. There's the trust that the audience is going to be able to pick up based on the context clues who these people are. It's 2025. It's really refreshing to see us be at a point where, like, yes, we are going to be able to pick up on the fact that a side character exists. If that side character's personality is displayed very clearly, we don't get a ton of Beck Bennett in this movie, but when we see him, we immediately know what his deal is. We get him like twice. That's enough. There we go. We don't need like a whole side plot line. We don't need him set up in a post-credit scene. It's bizarre. We see Hawkgirl fight a couple times. At no point did they sit us down and tell us what Hawkgirl's background or powers are. We don't need that. Mm-hmm. It's weird because if you look at like X-Men 2, they're not giving us the same explanations on who everybody is and what they do. And you could still start with X-Men 2 from the year, 2002 or whatever and be fine. Like you don't need this stuff because the context clues are already there. So it is kind of neat to see them trusting people and just diving right into it. And you're 100% right. It is so much better to see someone already exist in the fabric of this thing instead of just being stupidly teased. And then maybe we see him again, maybe we don't. I'm right there with you. I don't care. It's nothing pisses me off more at this point than a new character being introduced in a post-credit scene. I do not care. Do not show me this person until the movie is coming around, because we are at a point where it takes so long to make these things that I'm not going to care by the time the movie comes out. I would care a lot more if I saw the person in the trailer than if I saw them in a post-credit scene for something that doesn't even have a date yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think James Gunn kind of did some of this with the Guardians of the Galaxy, where they're in space. They're in all these alien worlds, and you get dropped on these alien worlds. And what was the last one where they're all like animals or something like that?
God, yeah. Very good point.
I guess they kind of explain it, but you don't need that much, right? Like you can just, we're on a world where all the people are animals or whatever. We're on a planet where everyone uses these like weird buttons and stuff. And I don't know, you just get dropped into these places and it's fine. And we figure it out and we all go along with it. There's a part of me just as like a normal moviegoer where there's a part of me that's kind of like, whoa, pump the brakes a little bit. But also, I get it. I know who Superman is. And even without that, I have context clues. I've seen the Justice League. I've seen all these things. We've had cartoons. We've had comic books. We have all this depth to it. And one of the things that I thought was pretty impressive, I always try to look at the Easter eggs for these movies. I think it's fun. The Marvel Easter eggs, a little light lately. I'll say that. It just seems like they've been a little light on this. The Superman ones, it just seems like there's a lot. There's posters in his room as a child that are depicting the football team that he played on, right? And that's his football team. The names of the streets are references to comic book characters for Superman. There's all these little details. They have like background characters in the office that are the characters from the comic book. So it just seems like so much thought was put into this. Like they had a plan. They had a vibe they were going for. There's intention behind it. Every moment they were like, how can we make this Superman though? Right? Can we how many names can we cross-reference for this? How many different things they have? It's DC's in an alternate universe, right? Like Marvel can drink a Diet Coke, but they drink a Coco Loco or whatever it is. I don't know. But
Coco Loco.
I saw there was something with a soda brand that only exists in the DC universe. And so that was referenced. And then they referenced their version of an Oreo. And it's actually the version that's referenced in DC. So it's like those kinds of details. I don't think they're a requirement, but it does show that thought and care is put into this, which I don't think that same level of care is put into every Marvel movie recently.
No, I mean, they've admitted as much that there were corporate mandates that caused them to crank out all the material that they were cranking out. Now, is that true? TBD. It's obviously easy to pin things on a former employee when they leave. So who knows if they're just doing that and kind of blaming it all on the other person so that they can save face a little bit. But I do want to touch on the vibe that you're talking about, because for people who may not have ever read DC Comics before, might not know the difference in the feel between like DC Comics and Marvel Comics, and are just kind of coming to this fresh. It's cool to be able to tell people like this is exactly what DC Comics feel like. Somehow, even down to like the lighting. So there's all these like differences in the people that work from like company to company. Sometimes people will jump ship, but a lot of times people will kind of work for like 10, 20 years with one of the big two comics companies once they get hired on. So there are little differences just based on the creative teams that are working for either company at either time. And when you look at the DC stuff, the stereotype tends to be that it is a little bit brighter. It is a little bit more optimistic. It has carried more over from the 60s and the 70s and even the 50s. That same sense of hope and optimism. Jesus, I can't talk today. And that like sense of moral clarity is very specific to DC, where Marvel kind of made its bones on labeling their superheroes as kind of freaks and misfits. And they all have a lot more human problems. We always joke around Spider-Man can never make rent. He's always got girl troubles. You know, people get into a lot of moral gray areas in Marvel that they don't tend to get into in DC. Everybody pretty much has like a straightforward moral compass. And I don't know how much of it is the look and the feel. I don't know how much of it is the Easter eggs and the details you're talking about, and how much of it is the fact that this is the most optimistic DC movie I think we've ever gotten, maybe since the original Christopher Reeve Superman. But it feels like you stuck your head inside one of these comics. And that is not a requirement. We talk a lot about how, for the most part, we don't give a shit. Like, it's better if you adapt these things to the medium that you're adapting it into and use what works there. But this is a rare occasion where what works in the comics also worked really well in this movie. And it's just neat to see someone pull that off to that degree.
It really is. It really is. It's a whole curated vibe, and it makes me wonder what Batman's going to look like in this universe.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
What's Wonder Woman going to look like?
It's probably going to look dead on to what you feel like she already, like her vibe already is. Like, I mean, everything, as long as, like you mentioned, as long as James Gunn is able to kind of shepherd other people through the creative process that worked for him, I think we should assume that it's going to have the exact feel that it has in the comics.
And I do love having all these other characters in it. It makes it seem it's again, it feels like the kind of stuff Marvel should be doing. Like, how have we not seen Shang-Chi like in a Marvel movie? We've been talking about that forever.
Fucking unforgivable.
Mr. Terrific is amazing. They
dropped. Yeah.
Mr. Terrific is so good. And I would love to see Mr. Terrific, you know, fly through the background of a Wonder Woman movie, or be in Batman, or have Hawkgirl talk to, you know, Wonder Woman or something. You could, or you just have Batman interact with other, like the Question or whoever else is like in his tier of superheroes, like have the world be a little more fleshed out than just Batman existing in it. And then, you know, a few movies from now, they could do a Justice League that would make sense because they have 20 characters that they've fleshed out that we've already seen. So I think they're going about it the right way. I also think James Gunn, something that James Gunn gets that I don't think every director, especially of action movies and things, gets, is you got to do some cool stuff. You have to do some cool things. And Mr. Terrific, the first fight scene with Mr. Terrific with the balls flying everywhere, the T-spheres, and he's got like Lois Lane in a force field, and he just plays music and shows like a really cool fight. I was like, hell yeah, James Gunn, that's what you do. That's what you do. And now, you know what? I'm looking at Mr. Terrific differently the rest of the movie, because I just watched him take out like 30 people. He just cleared this camp. He's been cocky and arrogant, and he's just walking through here, doesn't give a shit. And I'm like, this is a normal guy. Someone could just shoot him. And then it's like, oh no, they can't. He is on another level. He is a superhero. And it's great. It was just so cool. It's so cool. I was thinking too of Superman at the end. He flies up and he just spins like a top with his laser eyes. And I'm like, that's awesome. I don't feel like I haven't seen that necessarily. Not the same way. It's incredible. I was joking after I saw this movie, though, that one of the problems, maybe a problem with Superman, is that I feel like, you know how most people listening to this, a lot of your problems could just be saved. A lot of your problems could be solved with just money, like cash. Yeah. I think most of Superman's problems could be solved with laser eyes. He's always fighting somebody, and I'm like, use those laser eyes. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Have we forgotten about this heat vision? You have laser eyes. You should be using laser eyes constantly. Anytime you're fighting somebody, why not whip out the laser eyes?
Sure.
Give it a try. Let's see. You know, the engineer is super cool. Blast her with the laser eyes.
Yeah.
Keep her, go long distance, fly away from her and blast her with laser eyes.
You know, it's funny. There is one part in the fight with the engineer that might be the only part that stood out to me as, I don't know if that's a Superman move, which is when he hit Ultraman with the engineer. He like picks the engineer up by the legs and hits Ultraman with her. And it's like, I don't know that that's a Superman tactic. That feels like a lot of other people would use that tactic, but it is definitely a little dirty for Clark. What do you, in general, outside of that, obviously no one's ever going to stand up to Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve just was Superman. It's bizarre. But is David Cornsweet? David Cornsweet, is he the second best to you?
Maybe. That's a good question. I mean, I think Henry Cavill is really good, but he is doing something different. He's doing something else.
He feels very inhuman. I always did like that about Cavill.
He feels like an alien. He feels like something. He feels like a god.
Yeah.
And I personally don't find that super interesting. There's the guy who did that movie in between, right before Henry Cavill, he was on like the Arrowverse and stuff.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of like not on the level of these other guys. And David Cornsweet feels like a nice correction from Henry Cavill. I don't know if it needed to be corrected, but I don't see Henry Cavill playing this Superman. I don't think it would make sense for him.
It's weird because it's such a strange role to cast for. It's a lot like Steve Rogers, where I didn't think of Chris Evans as a great pick for Steve Rogers when he was cast.
Right.
And then you see what he does with the role, and it's really hard to imagine anyone else pulling off that level of sincerity. You really, truly believe it with him. I think Superman is a similar role in terms of that sincerity and that, like, again, that straightforward moral compass that you have to find a way to not make it boring. I thought Cornsweet did really good and seemed like a real person who was trying to do good and didn't necessarily have all the answers, but was acting to the best that he could think of in terms of what the good thing to do would be, which is probably better because it makes you relate to him more. But I struggle to think of somebody else who I would have swapped in there. Like, I don't know if they end up going for like, you know, Justice League cartoon Superman at some point where he is just this like living marble statue who is like, I will show you the way. Like, it's like if the statue of Abraham Lincoln came to life. That's the Justice League cartoon Superman. I don't know that I would necessarily buy that from Cornsweet yet. Maybe he'll get there, but maybe they don't ever go that direction with him. Maybe they let him stay this version of the character who kind of has to mull things over.
I don't think they need to do that big of a correction for like a Justice League movie. I think Batman has his own moral compass. Wonder Woman has her own moral compass, and they both have different lines. This Superman still feels like a Boy Scout, I think, compared to both of those versions. Like the real Wonder Woman, I think in the comics is like a lot more vicious. It's a lot of mythology. Oh, yeah. She's got swords. She's cutting people's eyes out. She lost an eye. She's fighting. She's having bloody, violent fights with people and kicking ass and taking names. She'll kill you. And Batman won't kill you, but he will come up with strategies to defeat his closest allies just in case.
Yeah.
Right. So I think you could put all three of those ideologies together and still have them all rally behind Superman's Boy Scout, thing. He is still a Boy Scout in this. He's just a real life Boy Scout who has issues and problems and doesn't know how to talk to girls and stuff and, figures it out. I will say something that was kind of mind blowing in this to me. Lex Luthor, Nicholas
Deep Sigh Holt.
Yeah, he's fine. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It's fine. It was fine. His Lex Luthor's fine. But you know what his Lex Luthor did that I've never seen a Lex Luthor do before, or at least I don't think I have?
shoot a guy in the fucking head?
He put a gun to a man's head and he pulled the trigger and he shot him in the head. What the fuck? That's crazy. That's wild.
Yeah.
You're saying Superman won't hit a bad guy with another bad guy? I don't remember ever seeing Lex Luthor like pull the trigger himself.
That is kind of wild that he was the guy holding the gun.
He's never the guy holding the gun. And if he is, the gun is a giant like kryptonite suit that he uses to battle with, right? It's something cartoonish. But him just pulling the trigger like that, he's a murderer. He is a murderer, a straight up monster. This is just a bad person. I think maybe it's his hatred for Superman is complicated and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But on paper, it's like, oh, this guy's purely a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's an interesting Lex for our interesting time. He was good. I like this take. He's not my favorite that I've ever seen of a Lex. There's something, maybe again, it's just because they're going for a younger version of this, but there is something that feels a little too out of control all the time about him. He kind of feels like he's tantruming a lot in this movie. And I tend to like Lex a lot more when he is a little bit more in control until things that he thought couldn't fall apart start falling apart. I think that's that could be an interesting contrast with a Superman who is having to reckon with his actions and is having to question himself, is a villain who refuses to. Which I guess Nicholas Hoult refuses to question his own motivation, but it does seem like he just spends a lot of this movie yelling because something isn't happening the way he wants it to.
Right. I wonder if there's a different actor that I would. I don't know. For some reason, Nicholas Hoult just doesn't do it for me in general. I wonder if there's another actor who could play it the same way that would have me feeling differently. Or if I'm just not super into Lex Luthor in general.
Yeah, but it's tough. I mean, I hate to say it. I think my favorite portrayal of Lex Luthor I've ever seen is probably Kevin Spacey, which maybe he's just drawing from the fact that he's a bad dude. You know, he's drawing from his own psychosis.
His real life experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
It just seems like Lex Luthor is just a rich man who hates Superman.
I kind of think he is. I buy into this idea that he elucidates in the movie where he says, you fly in the face of humans trying to do anything. Your mere existence is enough to make everybody feel helpless, which is a punch to the gut when Superman is trying to make everybody feel hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get it because Superman has all of the things that Lex Luthor can't buy.
Yeah. It's great. It's kind of I've joked around with DeCaro about this before, how I kind of feel like this in comedy as well. You got two different kinds of people. You got your Supermans and you got your Batmans. You've got your Superman, where some people, they just know what's funny. It's instinctual. They never need to question it. They know exactly when to drop a line in. They know exactly what the line should be. They're just fucking funny. It's like the most pure form of comedy. Everybody had a friend like this growing up. You just know it. And then there's the people who have to write a lot in order to get there. If they want to be able to perform and like be able to be off the cuff, they need to have written a bunch of quips ahead of time so that they will have some to draw from. But like, it takes a lot of work to get there. So you got your Superman, you got your Batman. Maybe you're born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline. Lex Luthor is like somebody who needs to work for it, but is putting the wrong kind of work in. Right.
And he is the dichotomy to Superman. And in general, I found Superman to be a pretty boring character. You know, I'm sure
even
there's
in this
DC no, I like him in this, but in general, if we're talking just general Superman from pop culture, I find Superman to not be the most interesting character usually, and thus his foil Lex Luthor probably also not that interesting, right? Because he's a foil for this character that I already find uninteresting. I'm curious if there's another level for this Lex. There's another angle, who the next Superman villain is going to be. I would love to just see more like different challenges for this version of Superman, I think is good. And even like the way the engineer fights him, where they're like getting stuff in his lungs, they're covering his eyes. It just seems like they're doing all these things that are really just picking apart Superman and attacking him from every angle. And the whole, what do you think about the war stuff? Him just intervening. It feels like they touched a delicate topic and then we're just like, F it.
Yeah. I really don't feel like he brought that home. I think it's really interesting that he tried to and that he dared to even bring something up. And frankly, it does feel realistic. Anytime I think about what I would do if I were Superman and were completely invulnerable and had basically godlike abilities. And you got to check yourself pretty quickly when you think about it, because it's like, man, I'd take care of that. And then you think like, well, that's imposing what I think is right on the world. And what I think is right is inherently biased and might not be the thing that's right for that group. So like, the interview between he and Lois, a lot of people were lighting that up when a partial clip of it was released online. But I think it's a really interesting conversation and is kind of the gateway into this version of Clark. And I really believe that this version of Clark would basically try to step in and stop this. He makes his opinion really clear. People were going to die. Like that is against his moral code. So he stopped it.
I also, if we really want to dumb down his philosophy, it's people were going to die.
Yeah.
I think you can answer all of his questions about politics, everything. Should he intervene? Blah, blah, blah. He's like, no one's allowed to murder people.
Yeah.
No dying. If someone's going to die, I will step in and prevent it from dying. If they want to do diplomatic, political stuff to like take over this country, that's out of my wheelhouse. But you're rolling in a tank to shoot people? No tank, no shooting people.
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty simple political situation for superheroes in general. It's like, just no killing. You can't kill people. Yeah. Don't do it. Even though there are, I guess, Superman seems like he killed Ultraman or whatever. Like, I don't think in a real grounded movie they can draw the line with actual superheroes not killing people, which I kind of like. Just don't even mention it. But I do think it can be that simple. Is like one group is trying to kill the other group. You can't do that. Even if the other group comes back and tries to kill them, no, we're just done with the killing. No killing from anybody anywhere ever. And I'll be there and I'll stop it. And then you can talk politics on the phone or whatever it is you need to do.
Dude, I love that. I want to bring this up. We're close to running out of time here, so we may need to keep talking about this next week. But while we were talking about the Superman and Lex Luthor dynamic, I was starting to think about the difference between that and like what we see out of Spider-Man. So I think if you look at Spider-Man and his enemies, it generally will boil down to they're all born from some kind of a scientific accident, but it's Spider-Man trying to use the power that he's been given because he feels that he has a moral responsibility to help people. And then it's these other people who tend to have scientific accidents or things that like super suits they designed to give them abilities that are trying to go impose their will. And they're mad at Spider-Man specifically because they're like, how dare you step in to stop me from doing this? Like Spider-Man to them is a reflection of a society who has always held them back. So it's that thing of like, Spider-Man feels the moral obligation to help society. They are outright outraged by the fact that his obligation is hitting back at them, a person who's been wronged by society. I think Lex and Superman is fundamentally different. And thinking about different superheroes, I think it's kind of unique, where it is, I think, the thing where it's like Superman is like, I am this superpowered person. I can show the world that they can be better than they think they can be. Where Lex is like, you are this superpowered person. You make all of us feel weak. If I can defeat you, that will make people feel stronger. That will make me feel stronger. And then it's like, I feel like we can dive into that further with like Fantastic Four, where like Fantastic Four feels more like a metaphor for like, using science for progress versus like the fears that we can uncover through science, the dangers we uncover through science. Like they feel like they tend to deal with these much bigger threats that are things that kind of feel like universal horror, something that's way larger than humanity could possibly face. While the Fantastic Four will use our ability to have scientific progress to defeat it. So I haven't been able, just in thinking about it briefly, I haven't been able to really identify anything that breaks with those three dynamics. So I'm curious to talk about a little bit more next week.
I think
we can
rapid fire, what's popping into my head now is,
hit it.
Generally speaking, and I could be wrong with these, shooting from the hip, Spider-Man didn't choose to become Spider-Man. I think a lot of his villains were in pursuit of power when they get it.
Interesting.
They're thieves.
Yes.
They're trying to defeat Spider-Man. They're looking to do these things. And then this power's thrust upon these people with bad intentions. Whereas Peter Parker's just chilling by himself, gets these superpowers, and then has to grapple with it. And we're lucky that he is a good guy with a good heart trying to do this stuff. But he's also just a guy. He can't pay the rent.
Gun.
Right. And Superman, the existence of Superman, it's like if another country just popped up and they have nukes and they make a lot of money and they just have power on the world stage, like our country would react negative. Like that would impact the entire planet.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what he does.
Wakanda showed up for real.
Yeah. If Wakanda showed up for real, it would change everything. And Superman is Wakanda showing up. He's just such a presence and a force that it skews everything we know about the world. That this one person has all this power on himself and he can do it. Fantastic Four, I think the main question is,
oh boy,
when are they going to make an interesting movie?
Okay. All right. We're going to hold on that. We're going to hold on that for next week. Listener, thank you so much for being here. Tim, great to have you back.
Oh, yeah,
we're going to be back here next week talking about Fantastic Four. We will see you then. And until then, stay nerdy, everybody.
Stay nerdy. Bye. Ready for Fantastic Four, baby. I'm coming for it.